Hey guys, welcome back. I wanted to go a little bit deeper today on something that I've been circling around with some of my more recent episodes because I feel like we've been in this really honest, pull back the curtain kind of season together. And I've touched on some of the deeper emotional mindset stuff. But what's been coming up, along with a lot of what I've been coming up against, which has been the whole journey of my business, but it's that concept of I'm not just building a business, my business is also building me. And so I wanted to go into a specific piece of that because I think it's one of the most misunderstood, most dismissed, but also one of the most powerful tools that we actually have in our business and in our life, but we can focus on business right now. But that's your emotions. And I know how that sounds, but just bear with me for 1 second because here's the background of it all and where it all started for me. But growing up, I was the emotional one in the family, and my family, my closest friends, all the people closest to me know that even though I try to hide it well, I'm still pretty emotional. And it's funny, even just saying that, I can think about how quote unquote awful that is to say and the connotation that comes up with it. But we will get into all of that. But back to the matter at hand, growing up in a family dynamic, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Each child gets their labels. And mine was that I felt things bigger and more deeply. And what was communicated to me, whether intentionally or not, is I felt them more inconveniently than other people in the family. And my dad in particular, while I know that he was absolutely trying to help me, I remember I was 2 or 3 years old and I was just going through it. And he's like, Katie, you need to get thicker skin if you want to get ahead in this world. And then he even said something about business, about how you're never going to make it and it's going to just set me up for failure. And I might be confusing some of the details because that was so long ago, but in that moment, his message was clear. And that is that my feelings, particularly my negative emotions, would be my downfall. They were the thing that I should run from, that I should be ashamed of, that I should hide, that I need to learn how to not have anymore. And so they became the thing that was my problem and the thing that I needed to kind of just manage and suppress. And if I couldn't do that, then I needed to apologize for them. And it's funny because also I know I'm talking about how I'm an emotional person, but it's never come out in a way that I actually need to apologize for things. So it's just so funny to think about what is told to us and how it's perceived and what we are told that it means and what it means about us and how we move through the world. But regardless, that became the law that I lived my life from. And then obviously because it was affecting all areas of my life, I brought it straight into my business. So anytime something came up that scared me or frustrated me or I felt uncertain about or just something felt off, I'd be more mad and upset with myself for feeling the feeling than just the fact that you have a feeling, you know? Plus on top of that, factor in new age spirituality. And then there's this whole other layer of being terrified to feel something negative, acknowledge something negative, because you're then going to quote unquote create more negative circumstances. So I'd feel these things and I'd push them down and I would just keep moving because that's what I thought I had to do. And even before I opened up the agency, this is kind of what it looked like for me. So I was having pretty regular panic attacks. I was also in a very toxic agency and a really rough corporate environment before then, even though I made some of my best friends there, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I was having regular panic attacks, honestly, since high school. That was the first time that had ever happened to me. And then as I got older and I had moved to Chicago and started having them because of the agency, ironically, I would call my dad in the middle of the night, knowing that he was the only one up, where I was unable to breathe, panicking, and he would still have to be the one to talk me off the ledge. Beyond the constant anxiety and regular panic attacks, it was also weekly therapy sessions, but with no real progress. And until literally about a month or so ago, it was also pretty constant doctor visits and protocols and tests to kind of figure out why these stomach issues that I've had my whole entire life just couldn't be diagnosed with anything, and I couldn't figure out how to get it to stop. And now I'm realizing that's all directly tied to my chronic stress and anxiety, which sounds obvious, but for someone who's felt that way since she was a little kid, before even having language to express it, it's harder to then find that clarity as you're going through it. So yeah, that's part of my origin story, but I also know that most of us, men and women, but particularly women, we're constantly told that our emotions are our weakness. And especially in business, they are our detriment. But I want to offer a different perspective that I personally am working through, because while it's taken me a while to figure it out and I'm still kind of going through it, it is helping me feel like there's a sigh of relief. Because beyond doing good work, one of the biggest reasons my clients stay around, they refer people, they genuinely seem to love working with me and the team, is because they genuinely like me and us. Because we can connect on a human level. We're not just a faceless business, and they can feel how much, I'm going to stop saying we now because I'm only going to talk about me, but they can feel how much I care about them and their success because I'm a real person with real range. And I remember talking to a friend about this because she used to be my designer and we were working with someone. And like every time we would talk to her, it was like she was nice. She was really good at what she does, totally professional, always pleasant. But there was just always something a little off and like just that felt odd when we would try to talk to her. And then one day I realized what it was. And it was that there was nothing really to connect to. She like kept it super pleasant, but there was no range. There was no emotion. There was no like anything good or bad. So like I did feel like I was talking to a robot at times because I was missing that texture and that depth. And honestly, like it would make me feel pretty uncomfortable and awkward sometimes. And there's no shade to her. Like I love her. I think she's a great person. I think she's great at what she does, but like it made me feel awkward. And that's not how I want to move through the world. And that's not how I want to make people feel or kind of come across personally. But that's just me. So before I get into the meat and potatoes, though, I think it's really important to speak directly to the person who's listening, who's hearing all this and is like, cool, Katie, that's a nice personal story, but I've got a real business to run. I have a team, I have clients, I have revenue goals. Like I don't have the luxury of making decisions based off of how I feel. I hear you. And I'm not asking you to become overcome by your emotions or start every call with a, hey, how you feeling roundtable. But I would push back on one thing because I think when most people say they don't let emotions into their business, what they actually mean is that they don't lead with them and that they don't succumb to them. And those are very different things than what I'm talking about and what I'm asking here. What I'm saying is the emotions are already there. They're already influencing every decision you're making, every hire you second guess, every client you take on when your gut was telling you not to, every pivot you delay because something feels off, but like you can't justify it in your head or on paper just yet. And so the only question is whether you're then working with the things that are already there or if you're kind of being run by them without even realizing it. And I know that I kind of said this earlier, but because I do know that some of my male clients listen to this and also like, thank you, by the way. I think it's really important to note that like men also get handed their own version of this story. So the conditioning is real across the board and so is the cost that comes from it. And this isn't about being more emotional in your business in the way that you're probably thinking about it, but it is about being more open to understanding what's already happening inside of you and then deciding with more clarity and more intention what you're going to do with it. So here's the part where I think it gets kind of interesting, but it's why I think emotions are such an important part of running your business. So first of all, your emotions are your body's first response system. So before your brain has even caught up, before you've rationalized anything, your body already knows. It already has the information. And yes, like while we do have to be careful here because not every emotional response is a clean, clear signal. Some of it is old patterns and conditioning. It can be fear dressed up as intuition. It can also be a story we've been telling ourselves our entire life or like a long part of our lives to the point where we don't even know it's a story anymore. But when we can get to a more neutral place with our emotions where we're not being run by them and we're also equally not suppressing them, they become one of our most honest, most intuitive reads you can get on what's actually happening in your business and in your body and in your life and all those things. But again, we'll keep it to business right now. But like, please do apply this to all areas of your life because I think it's so important. And anyone who's close to me knows that I'm trying to incorporate this more throughout all areas of my life. The second thing is that they're your tracking system. So big or small, your emotions will be the first thing to tell you like what you hate, what needs to change, or what you love and what you want more of, and what isn't working, what's draining you, what's lighting you up. And again, you might be like, duh, Katie, I get that, but that doesn't drive my business. But I actually think that being so lit up by your business actually does drive it forward. The third thing, and this one I find kind of fascinating as a marketer, is that we spend, as marketers, so much time studying human behavior, human psychology, emotional buying triggers, all of that stuff. Like what moves people towards action, we literally obsess over it. But then we, those same people, oftentimes, or me, I can just speak to me right now, don't let ourselves feel it. Which is such a disservice, because how are we supposed to truly understand what moves people if you then are so disconnected from what moves you? Specifically, the uncomfortable pieces that move you. And then the fourth and final piece that I'm finding really interesting right now, which is literally what we're doing right here, right now, if you are listening to my voice, is that emotions are a connection point and a builder of relationships. So with your clients, with your community, with the people who follow you and read your emails and listen to your podcast episodes, we know the world is craving authenticity now more than ever. And we know that people are exhausted by the facade. And we've gotten a pretty good barometer for when someone is being genuinely real and open and honest and emotional and vulnerable. So not being performative about it, not sharing for clicks and likes, but actually real. And when they do that, they become magnetic. And that magnetism really does extend directly into your business and does truly bring the right people back to you. But so now, what do we actually do with all of this? Because I don't want this to just be a concept episode of like, oh, cool, yeah, that makes sense. But like, what do I do now? So let's talk about like what I'm doing with all this stuff and how I'm moving through it in my life, but then also that's really what is coming into the business right now. So for me, it is a lot of therapy going on behind the scenes right now, and particularly more somatic or body-based practices. Because again, for me, having grown up pushing down all my feelings and rationalizing myself out of them, I can therapeutize what I'm feeling until I'm blue in the face. But talking about them has never actually helped me process them or move through them in a way where I'm not really overcome by them anymore, even if it's manageable. So I've had to get back into my body and actually feel everything that's been squashed down for more than 30 years. And by the way, like, let me tell you how much that sucks when you start to feel all of that again. But I do believe that like it does help, because it went from being this constant state of emotional, anxious, all of that stuff that was just like this quiet hum, to now there's like these real like bursts of negative emotion, and then these like bursts of like neutrality that genuinely feel like bliss right now. And so I can feel that like changing the dynamic within my body, within my emotional state, and then therefore like how I'm existing in the world, even though it's very, very uncomfortable going through it. Another practice is I've been a massive fan of EFT tapping for years. So emotional freedom technique. And if you're not familiar with it, it's the practice of tapping on specific meridian points on like your head, on your hands, on your chest, like while you're processing something emotionally. And I have an incredible practitioner, Helena Grace Donald. So if anyone wants to try personalized support, definitely reach out to her, reach out to me for her information. But also I've been playing around with what's called Faster EFT by Robert Jean, sorry, for in the moment stuff that comes up. Another big piece that I've been doing is nervous system regulation. Like that's become a daily, like minute by minute thing, part of my life. And so practically speaking, that looks like humming, it's long walks with my doggy girl Finley. And it's also trying to really learn the cues about when I need to be more in my body to process something versus when I need to take myself out of it and focus on something entirely. Because let me tell you, when you start to feel your heart racing and your breath shallowing, the world will tell you to focus on long, deep breaths. But for me personally, that is actually the absolute worst thing I can do. And that will actually send me into a panic attack. So had to learn the hard way that when you start feeling that, we got to take our energy, our attention out of it and process the emotions by seeing what's happening outside of our body that's freaking out right now. And then lastly, this is probably the most like woo-woo, you might judge me thing that I do, but like whatever, we are already in it this deep. But for years, I've recorded subliminals of myself. Wild that I can't even say it without giggling to myself about it, but like we're working through that too. But what that looks like is I'd think through what I'm working on, what I want to see come to fruition in my life, internal stories and identities that I either don't want anymore or want to become. And then I'd find some cinematic feeling playlist on YouTube, and I would hit the voice recorder app on my phone, and I would literally record myself reading through everything I wrote down, everything I want to like see happen in my life over this cinematic music, so that when I'm listening back to it, it's in my voice. It's exactly what I want to feel, experience, live in my business, in my life, all of those things over music that like gets you emotionally inspired. And so then I would take that and I would listen to it as I'm falling asleep, as I'm waking up, or whenever I needed a boost. And there are also apps that like you can do this for you where it wouldn't be personalized per se, but there are apps if you don't want to do that yourself, but you're like, that sounds kind of interesting. So again, let me know if you have any questions about that because I can send you some resources. But yeah, I know how that last one sounds, but I completely stand by it. And then the absolute most simple and hardest one for me has just been letting myself feel things, all the emotions, good, bad, ugly, and not trying to fix them immediately, not reframing them the second they show up, not pushing through, just feeling them, which honestly, I still sometimes hate. It still really terrifies me sometimes. But when I think about how I am in a pretty uncomfortable life transition right now and all the feelings that come up around like everything, business, life, my uncertainty, things that I'm trying to rebuild, the moments where like I genuinely don't know what comes next and everyone's asking me, I'm just letting myself feel them, which is like a wild thought. And on top of that, I try to remind myself that like these will be the stories that eventually can help someone as they're going through whatever they're going through. These will be the things that I can share of like how I got through it. And even if it sounds conceited or weird, that knowledge that maybe this can help someone else someday in like some little piece kind of helps me at least deal with the discomfort and make it feel like this discomfort and this real, not pleasant feeling is worth it. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you were handed a similar story, that your emotions are too much, that they'll hold you back, that professionalism means keeping them out of your business, I want to offer you a potential reframe. Because what if they're not actually the problem? What if they are some of the most important data points that you actually have? And again, like you don't need to be overcome by them. You shouldn't have every feeling drive business decisions, but we also don't have to keep fighting them because they are not going anywhere. And in my experience, the longer we fight them, the longer we push them down, the louder they become and they will make you hear them. So being super honest, this is where I am today, still very much figuring it out, still stumbling through how all of these things come up in all areas of my life and also block me and also connect me more deeply with people. But I wanted to let you in because I do think that all of it really does matter. And I am choosing to believe that if you're listening to this as well, then at least some part of you thinks that it matters too. So I just want to thank you for letting me be more vulnerable on this one. Thank you for your kindness as even doing this feels uncomfortable. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all of you. And I'll talk to you guys soon.